Hello, my name is Derek from Tomcat Gas Training, and the new series of videos we're about to produce are all about the health and safety and use of hand tools. Might even throw a bit of power tools in there as well. But we're specifically going to be looking at the tools used by plumbers and gas engineers, because basically that's what we do here at Tomcat, plumbing and gas. So the very first tool I'm going to be looking at is this. Probably the first tool ever made by man. I believe about 3.3 million years ago that they were using hammers in Africa. Well, basically it was a piece of wood with a V with a rock stuck in the middle and strapped up. Archaeologists found them not long ago in the south of Africa. So they've been going a long time. Not as long as this hammer, but yeah, they've been going a long time. But the most important health and safety equipment we must use are these, which are safety glasses. So you must always wear safety glasses at all times because your eyesight is incredibly important, and you must always protect your eyes by using the safety glasses. Different types of hammers you can buy. I just got my hammers, these are out of my toolbox, but what you can see mainly in a plumber's toolbox, we use lump hammers because we do a lot of smacking out holes for flues, so we need hammers. So I have various weights of hammers. Now, first hammers had a hickory wood handle. Okay, now this is the hammer I bought when I was an apprentice, so this hammer's been going a long time. You can see I've not used it much over the last few years, but it is quite a weighty hammer. I think the average weight for a hammer is done in ounces, about 16 ounces, but I think this is a bit more. I think this is about 21, 22 ounces. And it's a drop forged head. So basically what they did was they got some steel, they stuck it in a forge, they heated it up, they put it under a big hammer and poof, with a die and smacked it, and then they stick it in an oven to heat treat it. Now this has got a flat face, and it's also got quite a curved claw or hook, and that's for taking nails out. Okay, now this is the hammer I have in my tool bag all the time. I bought this about 2001, something like that, and this hammer is a lot lighter than this one. It's made of all steel. Okay, so this is high carbon steel, and the steel goes all the way through to the handle. Okay, so this is a rubber handle. Now, this handle, when you smack it, takes a lot of the vibration out more than this one does. Okay, but there are different types of handles you can get. Besides wood and steel, you can also get fiberglass coated in plastic as well, which our trainees have here, because they're cheap. Okay, now my lump hammers, this is the lump hammer I keep in my box all the time. This is my S-wing. Again, you can see the shafts are pretty much the same, full steel all the way through, and if you do miss, it's going to hit on the edge there. Now, one of the things you've got to make sure is, because of that edge, is when you're hitting, you're not going to put your thumb in the way, because that would probably cut your thumb off. So you've got to make sure you keep that well away. This is my heaviest lump hammer. This is 4 pounds. So this is a proper weighty hammer. You couldn't wing this about all day. But if I'm going through concrete and I want to smack through the concrete, then I'm using this one. Okay, and this is my lightest. That's my next heaviest one. But loads of different hammers around there. Brickies have their own hammers. Carpenters, joiners, they use all their own different types of hammers. The main difference now with the hammers is the claw's a lot straighter, because they can use the claw then for pulling stuff up or getting in tight spaces. Okay, but being a gas engineer, being a plumber, we hardly use hammers. Okay, we're only using a hammer for knocking the flue out, and this gets used for knocking raw plugs in. We don't nail floorboards down, they're all screwed now. And most joiners, even though they'd have loads of different hammers, they use nail guns all the time. So everybody needs a hammer, but we don't use them all the time, especially gas engineers. So that's a quick introduction to the hammer. Let's have a look at how to use the hammer. 1, 2, 3. Now, when you're working with really big heavy hammers, one of the things you must always make sure you're wearing is your steel toe cap boots. So if you did this, because this is a really heavy hammer, remember, 4 pounds on your toe. These aren't my steel toe caps, I had them. Too late now, mate. I think I broke my toe. We need to go to hospital. Now, tip number 1. First of all, the faces of the hammers can either be flat or slightly curved. This is slightly curved. Now, the reason why they're slightly curved is if you hit the wood, it only leaves a little dent in the middle, it doesn't leave a massive dent. Okay, now one thing you never do is hit 2 hammers together like that, unless you're wearing eye protection. Now there's been loads of studies, loads of tests at hitting 2 hammers like that because they're both so hard it can splinter off. Okay, so never hit any hammer heads together like that unless you're wearing these safety glasses, because if it does splinter off and it does go in your eye, it's going to be a bit of a pain. So tip number 1, never hit 2 hammers together near your face without safety glasses on. In fact, never do it at all. Now, tip number 2, holding a nail. This is a 4-inch galvanised nail. Just like to thank David Barlow, my trainee, because he's got a bucket of nails in his van because I found out I didn't have any nails. So we got a piece of 3x2 on top of a piece of 3x2. So when we're knocking the nail in, you hold it at the top, not at the bottom. Because if you hold it at the bottom and you miss, there's nowhere for your thumb or finger to go. So you hold it at the top first and then start it. Then move your hand well away. Okay, and then you're knocking the nail in. Now, did you notice how I had my thumb? Okay, you have your thumb down the shaft like that. So when you hit it, it's hitting where you want it to. Now, a lot of joiners say you'll break your thumb. I've always done it that way. I've never broken my thumb. Well, I have, but not using a hammer. And you won't miss because that is directing. And when you're hitting, you're doing that action. Like that action. Okay? It's all from the forearm and moving your elbow because you'll have more control over it. Okay? So you can grip it like that. Okay? But when you're starting off using a hammer, let's try and use your thumb as a guide and keep your hand well away when you're knocking in those nails. Let's have a look at tip number 3. Now what we've got here are some inch tacks. Now with my big fat fingers, and I try and knock that in, I'm hitting my finger all the time. But if you get a pair of long nose pliers and hold the tack at the top like that, you can now knock it in. So that's tip number 3. Now, there are other things you can use. Some guys use a magnet on a stick. Okay? Other guys who's got hair can use a comb. I don't have a comb. So, grab it at the top with your long nose pliers, put it into the wood and knock it in like that. Notice I'm not, you only need little taps. This hammer's a little bit heavier for that. Okay, but I don't seem to have a lighter hammer. Okay, so that's how you deal with the smaller tacks or nails. Let's have a look at another little tip. 1, 2, 3. Now, I'm one of those lucky people who can use a hammer in both hands. So if you're using your hammer in your left hand, again, make sure your thumb is in the right place. Get rid of get the nail, knock it in a little bit before you actually hit it. Oh yeah! Now, another one of Dave's 4-inch galvanised nails. Just going to tap it into the wood. Okay. Now, to use the claw, you can see that that is only just getting onto it, okay, which is not very good for us. But if we put another hammer, it gives us a better purchase point to be able to pull it, okay, because if we don't have the hammer there and we've got it low down there, we're just going to slip off, okay. So you can use another hammer shaft to be able to pull it out for you. Now, another way of getting a nail out, instead of pulling it that way, you can twist it that way and pull it out. Okay, so you're reducing the length of the nail, as long as you don't want to use the nail again. It does make a bit of a mess of it. Okay, so you can either pull it out that way, or you can twist it and pull it out that way. So let's look at another one. Now, if you don't want to damage the wood, or it's plasterboard and you're trying to pull a nail out on plasterboard, you can use a piece of sponge, okay? Put the sponge on, and then you can pull it, and you won't damage the wood. Now, you notice I'm pulling these nails, I'm pulling them away from me. You don't want to be pulling them towards you, because if you pull them towards you, you might end up hitting yourself. So make sure you're always pulling the nails away, and always make sure you get your little fingers away out of the way of it, especially when you're pulling nails out of walls, okay? One thing you don't want to be doing is putting that hammer in line with this big thing, because you will splatter it all over your face. So always think health and safety all the time. Always wear your safety glasses. Next tip. Now, if you're hitting the hammer and you find it starts slipping off, okay, it might be something to do with the face of your hammer as well as you being a bad shot. So if you get a piece of wet and dry or a piece of Henry paper or sandpaper, you can just clean the face of your hammer up. So you're nice and shiny in the middle, and then you can hammer it home to your heart's content. One, two, three. Now, to get a nail out of the wall, okay, get your claw hammer, okay, put it onto the nail, get your two hands on it, and what you do then is, you give it a good pull. One, two, three. Now, always remember, when you're using a hammer, always wear your safety glasses, and always remember, never pull the hammer towards your face. Always think health and safety. Can I stop now? Yes. So, if you need to plant a piece of wood on the side of another piece of wood, what you can do is, if you start the nail off first, place it against what you're going to nail into. If you don't really want to be nailing like that, okay? So what you do is, get it started, get something heavy, whether it's a brick or another hammer, and you put it right in line. You can nail it in. It's as simple as that. One, two, three. Now, when you're planting two pieces of wood together, putting your hand behind it like that putting the nail in and starting hitting it is not a good idea, because what happens is you can put, you hitting it is putting pressure on your hand behind, and there's always a chance when you're hitting it that it's going to go through your hand. So I'm just going to show you how to make a little hammer holder. Okay, now we're plumbers, gas engineers, so we've always got a bit of 40mm, 32mm, 50mm hanging around. So I've just cut a piece about the size of my hand, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut down the centre here. Always making sure you're keeping your fingers out and it's health and safety. Okay, so I've cut down that far, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this section out. So we've now got that, so you could clean it up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little multi-tool thing here, and I'm just going to cut a little slot down the sides here. If my battery was full, I'd be able to do it. I better go and charge my battery. Okay, so you can see I've cut a slot in there, just needs filing up and cleaning. You can attach it to your belt, you can get your hammer and you can slide it in, and you've now got somewhere to hold your hammer. Now, depending on how thick your end of your shaft is, depends on how big your pipe you need to use. So I'd need to use 50mm for that one, to be able to slide that one in. But that's the quick and easy way how to make a little holder out of solvent weld pipe. You can find the end of your belt for your hammer. Easy. Okay. So when you're sawing down, you've got to make sure you keep your finger out of the way, because one thing you don't want to be doing is sawing. Now, just to recap before we finish up, first of all, always the most important thing, wearing safety glasses. Next thing, when you're knocking the nail in, always hold the nail at the top, not at the bottom. When you're swinging the hammer, always make sure you keep your hand away. At the beginning you can keep your thumb, keep the grip down at the bottom, and you're using gravity. You're always looking at the head of the nail, not the head of the hammer when you're hitting it. So when you're hitting it, you won't miss. If you bring the hammer down higher up, once you get used to it, you can get more purchase on the nail. Okay, so when you're starting off slowly and using your forearm and that action, and once you get better at it, you're bringing the head of the hammer down, loosening off your grip as you go in, because you're using gravity and the weight of the hammer. Okay, the heavier the hammer, the faster it'll come down and the more kinetic energy you're going to get to knock that nail in. So that's our health and safety on using this hand tool. It's left or right handed, so you're alright, and it's cordless. Okay, so if you've liked this video, why don't you give us a thumbs up or leave a constructive comment down below. If you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, then subscribe, hit that notification bell because we upload new videos every Wednesday. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and look out for the next health and safety video we've got coming out. Cheers guys!